Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we're talking about The Souvenir.
Yes.
British drama written and directed by Joanna Hogg.
Yes.
Who's made a number of films before, none of which I've seen.
I don't think I've seen any either.
I understand they have a reputation for being about kind of middle-class characters, middle-class life, but I don't really know, I don't know anything about them. She's also worked in TV before that, in the kind of 90s and 2000s. She was working on things like Casualty, EastEnders, London's Burning, I think, things like that. And this film is about, from what I understand, it's kind of semi-autobiographical, talking about, or based on her experiences at film school.
That's right. So I understand.
Yeah, so I'm led to understand.
Uh-huh.
So it's about this girl called Julie, played by Honor Swinton-Byrne, who is in early 20s. She's at film school. She wants to make a film about Sunderland, but she's very kind of middle class, and I'm guessing a Southerner herself. She sounds like a Londoner. She's
very upper middle class.
Yeah. She wants to make this film about Sunderland, and she has all these kind of very earnest ideas about wanting to get out of her bubble.
Yes.
And wanting to kind of show, wanting to film in the shipyard. That's kind of the classic thing. If you go to Sunderland, you film the shipyard.
Yes.
And this is set in the 80s. So, although I think it's kind of interesting in that it has markers of the 80s. It's an ambiguously 80s set, and people talk about the IRA bombings. People talk about the dilapidation up north. But you don't hear the word Thatcher said at any point. It doesn't beat you down, I think, with the kind of symbols of that.
But still, all the markers are there. The clothes are very much there.
The music.
The music is either of that period or what would have been retro in that period, like Moonlight Serenade.
But I think what's interesting is that there is this focus on class in the film. The film is kind of bathed in a focus on that, and I think in another film it would be more stereotypically handled. It would be more handled through things like the miners, and it's not here. So you're kind of constantly aware of it. There's talk of, like I say, Julie wanting to move out of her bubble, see other things, and there's a character in a party she's having at a flat in Knightsbridge right at the start. There's a character from Liverpool who's talking about how she's there filming them with a camera, with a film camera, and he's saying something like, well, of course she can. She's comes from money. She can. Like of course she's at film school. Her parents can pay for that sort of thing. And then someone else says, well, if you work hard, if you made the money, wouldn't you want your kid to have all the opportunities and such and such? And the guy says something along the lines of, yeah, but I want them to be aware of it, which struck me as a kind of modern day sort of thing to say in that conversation about privilege. He uses the word privilege as well at one point, which strikes me as quite a modern day thing. Which is not to say that those conversations weren't happening. Back in the 80s, people were very aware of it. But it just struck me as a kind of slightly modern take on it.
I don't know. I think the whole class thing is a very interesting take, because basically it just feels like it's autobiographical, that's all. So all of the anxieties that British people have, the envy, the nastiness, the hidden resentments around kind of class positions really are all absent in this film. I mean, she is unapologetically upper middle class. She's a nice person. She wants to do good, but basically this is her family and this is what she comes from. And, that's it. She's in a wonderful, 18th century golden bed, and at the same time it's quite bohemian. She's a person from that background who wants to be an artist, and who's kind of very gentle and thoughtful, and kind, really. I mean, these are all kind of difficult things to make a movie about, because, it's like a really lovely, nice person trying to do the right thing who is at the heart of the film. And so her struggle really isn't with her background. There's no angst about that. That is just what it is, right? And she's very generous with it, in fact, right? Because one of the themes of the film, or one of the narrative trajectories, is that she meets this guy who's in the Foreign Office, and they begin an affair, and then little by little she discovers that basically he's a heroin addict, right? And it takes her quite a while to discover, because you get the sense that she's been so sheltered. Yeah.
She has no idea, so she sees track marks on his arm and says, "What's that?" And he says, "Oh, I don't know. Well, what do you think we should do about it? Wait till it goes away." And she doesn't know what it is. And then a little bit later, when they have a couple of friends over for dinner, the guy's played by Richard Ayoade, who's great, and he says, when the boyfriend Anthony, this is played by Tom Burke, when he leaves the room, Richard Ayoade's character says, "So I'm trying to work out how you two fit together. You've got the habitual heroin user and the apprentice Rotarian."
Yes.
Or a trainee Rotarian. That's the line. Which is a great line. But she doesn't get that he's been using heroin. And obviously it must sink in after that. But
yes.
But she's very, very confused by it. So she is super sheltered. And I suppose it makes sense that there's no confrontation about it.
No, it's not that there's no confrontation. It's just, she's in love and she wants to help and she's completely bewildered by the whole thing. So, a lot of the time she thinks it's like her fault, or, she wants to put him at ease, or I suppose all of the things that people who've lived with drug addicts will recognize, right? And then at a certain point, he steals all her valuables, which include not only the jewelry she's obviously inherited and that has sentimental value to her, but also her film equipment. Kind of leaving her without the means to kind of, realize her project. And even then, she apologizes for making him feel bad about it. Yeah.
She sets it right at the start as someone very passive in that respect, because the idea is that she owns this flat, or it must be her parents have given her this flat in Knightsbridge, and she lives with a roommate, and his girlfriend is kind of always there, and there's this conversation that happens between some other character about how she's a crap landlady because she needs to start charging her rent, and she doesn't, and she won't stand up to so like right at the start you've got this sort of passivity in her.
Yes.
Which they...
Well, yes. Or is it passivity? I mean, the thing is that this is where money comes in. So she's a kind person, really, and she can get money, and that's just kind of not a concern for her. So the idea of making everybody uncomfortable to get something that she might not need or want, you get the feeling that there's a different way of thinking about those things for her that is very much tied, to her class background and, and so on. But that is not problematized. That is kind of, it's given as a marker of character rather than as some kind of a critique of the class system or something. I really loved it.
Overall, you loved it?
I loved the film. I thought it was very poetic and beautiful. I was trying to figure it out. I'm not sure about this, but it feels to me, and we should look it up, but it feels to me that it's a film that was filmed with celluloid. There was a quality to the images, right? And the images were very carefully filmed. There was like kind of, this double exposure on some of the shots, right? Some of the night shots, kind of, the neon and the greens were really brought out, and the rest were kind of like really blurry in a way that I thought was like kind of beautifully deployed to indicate a state of mind. There were all those wonderful framed shots of the window where you only saw half of the treetops, right? So there's like the sky, but like the earth is incomplete. There's an incomplete view of, what's around you. I thought, those were all like kind of, the choices of someone who expresses themselves visually.
I'm having a quick look to see if I can find filming details. There's certainly a couple of shots I think you referred to where whatever is the normal filming technology has been swapped out for like 8mm, which to reflect the way that Julie actually films, and kind of, as you say, it's like her state of mind and her point of view, almost. I mean, I found those shots, there's only 5 or 6 of them, but I found those quite self-conscious.
I love them.
I'm just seeing if I can find more information.
The whole film felt like it was filmed on celluloid.
16mm negative. Camera, Arri 416 and Arri Alexa. They're digital cameras, aren't they?
I don't know.
Maybe it's just the 16mm actually refers to those shots. Sorry, I meant Arri Alexa. Yeah, the Alexa's digital. RE416 is a film camera, so
Okay.
there's a combination of both.
Right.
And the negative format, it says there is 16mm, so there you go.
Yes.
So I think
the film has a particular visual quality. It lacks that brutish sharpness, that you get often in digital. Some of those images have a grainy quality, and I think, those must be the ones you're speaking of as maybe Super 8 or something.
16mm, I think, is
Okay,
16.
16.
From what I can tell.
But the rest doesn't quite, though. You get a sense every shot has been like really carefully thought through, in kind of in poetic ways. I really loved it.
There's a really painterly soft quality to the lighting and colour in them, which and there may be, if it is digital, that there may be a grain sort of effect on the top, which helps to sort of soften the image, maybe. Like as you said, there's something to. For instance, it doesn't look like a David Fincher sort of digital where everything is incredibly sharp and all the rest. It does. It evokes that feeling of film beautifully.
Yes, it does. We must mention the painting because the film is named after a Fragonard painting called Souvenir, which we'll put on the we'll link up to. It's a picture of an aristocratic 17th century or early 18th century woman with those, wonderful full skirts. And there's a dog, a spaniel, nearby. And she's basically carving the name of someone one presumes.
She's carving the initial of her lover who's said to meet her there. They talk about this in the film.
Oh, right.
They look at the painting in the film, do you remember?
Yes, well, he sends a postcard.
Yeah.
And then they go to the Wallace collection, which is where the painting is, and where he will end up, spoilers, committing suicide.
If it is overdosing on heroin.
On heroin in the toilets of the Wallace collection, where I was just a few days ago with my nephew. The film would have meant so much more. But anyway,
the painting's from 1778.
Okay, 18th century.
Yeah, late 18th century, and as you say, it's this woman in lovely big pink frock, carving the initial of her lover into this tree, and as a little dog looks on.
So the film has that quality, right? So it's this beautiful young woman. It's obviously a very well-to-do, young woman, kind of looking back on a lost love, on a souvenir of a love that's no longer there. The film has those qualities, though. It's set in the 1980s, so it's a bit grittier than the painting, but not much more. Yeah, kind of, the family is aristocratic. Tilda Swinton is wonderful, and whoever plays the father is, so striking. But Swinton is amazing. I mean, from her very first entrance, like you just feel everything that she's thinking in her bones. And the way that she's dressed with those woolen stockings and that tartan skirt and the little pullover for walks in the country. It's really, everything is it's great. Whatever choices were made to dress her and her makeup and and then her own performance are fantastic. They really evoke a particular type of person, like the old Duchess of Devonshire or somebody like that, like kind but supremely at ease in every kind of situation, really. So the film is about the souvenir of that, and it kind of evokes that. It's both sweet and melancholy and sad and and rich, right? It's not it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's through a rose tinted lens like the skirt of the Fragonard painting that you've just shown me, but it is kind of I don't know, a loving look at a terrible situation. I mean, if you think of how somebody else might have filmed this, would have all been darkness and grit and soul searching and whereas kind of...
And actually that move into darkness in the last shot, the second to last shot of the film, where you see Julie filming her film at film school, which you've seen her doing at certain points throughout. It's set up now the actress who she's filming is in this wearing black, and all the light is just on her, and everything around is black, as I guess you'd expect. But then, as the scene as they start to shoot this scene, the camera through which we're watching this moves away from the actress and onto Julie.
What's the poem that they recite?
I don't know.
It's a famous one.
I'll see if I'll look it up in a second.
Yeah.
But the camera ends up on Julie's face, and it's a shot. Actually, I think it's one of the publicity shots for the film, and I think it's the shot that makes up the end of the trailer as well, which is such a striking shot in the trailer. Because normally in a trailer, you have the various shots from the film, and then it cuts to black basically, and the text goes over the black. But this, in the trailer for this, the words "the souvenir" at the end were over this shot of Julie's face, and it's this. I don't know. It feels like it's a reference to a painting. It certainly has that. It has that composition, feeling, and lighting, and it's Julie's face turned towards the camera, and it's striking partially because she's bathed in black all around at that point, and nothing like that in the rest of the film has been. It's not been all colour and shiny lights, but it's been light.
No, actually, one of the things that I loved about the film is, you know, the lack of sharpness. That it was all soft focused and grainier, and you know, you had like, it lended kind of like a haunting quality or a quality of the past or memory to the film. Yeah, just kind of, you know, the visuals of it really. I thought it was really beautiful.
I'm seeing if I can find information on the poem here.
It's the one, I think it's Keats or Shelley or somebody like that. Do not weep for me or whatever.
Here's one. Christina Rossetti.
Oh, that might be it. Yes, Christina Rossetti.
Let me just have a quick scooch about on the page to find it. This is a page from a website called takeonecinema.net. All I searched for was the Souvenir film poem. So, Julie is making her film in a soundstage. This is the shot I was referring to. An actor sits on a stool to the left of frame, reciting Christina Rossetti's poem "When I Am Dead, My Dearest," lit with golds intruding upon the darkness like in a Caravaggio painting. Well,
is that the poem?
It may be. Shall I look up "When I'm Dead, My Dearest"?
Yes.
I'm doing all the research today. It's only a short poem. "When I am dead, my dearest, sing no sad songs for me." This is what they read. "Plant thou no roses at my head,
That's the one
nor shady cypress tree.
That's
Be
right.
the green grass above me with showers and dewdrops wet, and if thou wilt remember, and if thou wilt forget. I shall not see the shadows, I shall not feel the rain, I shall not hear the nightingale sing on as if in pain, and dreaming through the twilight, that doth not rise nor set, haply I may remember, and haply may forget."
That's lovely. See, and that kind of, that does speak to the film and to what the film's about. So beautifully chosen. Anyway, what interesting choices. I mean, I think the other thing that really struck me was that you could tell that this was a film made by a woman. Right? It's kind of, there's one nude scene, full frontal, it's of a man, right? And it's of a man kind of offering what ends up being unsatisfactory. Yeah. So, you know, the love object of, you know, the protagonist is kind of, he's got a hair lip, he's not particularly fit, right? But she laughs with him and she feels for him. And of course, you know, he's got kind of this elegant way of making her laugh that is hiding, you know, whatever problems drove him to heroin, and you know, whatever problems heroin is causing, all kind of, you know, mostly remain under the surface, right? He's got one scene where, you know, he's in the midst of the throes of need. But I thought that was very interesting, you know, that the person she's so madly in love with, you know, is I mean, he's attractive, but he's not particularly good looking.
He has the kind of mild facial disfigurement that a woman could never get away with, and a man can.
Exactly.
See what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Yeah, I mean, you know, had the roles been reversed and had the film been made by a man, it would have been a really beautiful woman. You know, an extraordinarily beautiful woman that he couldn't help but loving, even though she was trouble. Yeah. Right? Like this.
That's not what he represents. He's also rather a lot older than she is.
That's right.
He's in his mid to late 30s, and she's in her early 20s.
Yes,
and he has this position at the Foreign Office, and kind
That's
of keep
right.
secrets from her. So there is it reminded me to some degree of An Education,
It has a little bit of that.
although I think he was a con man in that, so it's not exactly the same.
Yeah.
But it has a sense of that sort of seduction by a mysterious, not powerful, but someone with a kind of mysterious influence.
I mean, the whole thing is, he's a dandy, and she falls for that. So he's an upper-class dandy who seduces her, with his nonchalance and his wit and his light air of boredom. It's a type. It's a romantic type.
Yeah.
It's
a very generous role to have been given, I think. Tom Burke, who plays him, Anthony, I think, because it's not the central role in the film. That's Honor Swinton Burns.
Yeah, who is fantastic.
But he gets the 3 or 4 biggest laughs, for one thing. He gets to kind of play. Well, he gets to play a character role,
Yes.
So there's room for flair and freedom and
it's all quite understated. It's played low key. That role could have been done very flamboyantly, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very good performance. Very clever as well. Because but throughout the film, he really is the object of her desire. She kind of comes alive when he's around, and clearly makes her happy, and even all of the trouble that he brings her, it kind of I wouldn't say that she revels in it. There's a point when she can't take it, but she's trying to find all kinds of ways of accepting it, right? Of seeing it as part of him, until there's a point in which she just can't.
I mean, it gets to the point where she comes back to her flat and there's just a junkie there who she doesn't know, who actually he's kind of polite and stuff, but basically she says you've got to get out of the flat. It's dangerous, and then he's not there either. It's not like he's upstairs waiting. What do you do with my friend?
Yeah,
this just his junkie was there.
Yes.
So it gets to the point. That's around the time that she is saying this has to stop.
Yeah. And
then she finds needles left out, and that's exactly when it is. So she does reach a breaking point. Good for her.
Yes. So I must say, there's something about the tone that I just loved. I love the representation of the parents. There was a shot where they're told he's died. And actually, Tilda Swinton was so great because she says something like, it's the worst possible news.
She just says the worst.
Oh, she says the worst. But then she leans with her elbow to the ball, and that creates a kind of an effect of, deflation, even while she's trying to be, matter of fact about it, and then there's a shot where the mother and the daughter are both in bed, and you just see Tilda Swinton's back, and she's the one who can't contain her tears.
Yeah, she's away from the camera, but she's sobbing, and you can tell.
Yeah, which I thought, what an interesting choice, to have the mother, right? Because you see, when it's the mother doing it, it's like it's weeping for lost youth, for someone who will never get old, for a young man brought down in his prime, weeping for her daughter and so on. So it makes this thing about it being a souvenir, of a time, kind of all the more kind of reverberative.
Yes. Reverberational.
Reverberative. Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
you can look at the whole film then as the souvenir.
Yeah.
Joanna Hogg has made the souvenir of her past.
Yes. I think what we haven't spoken of as much as I'd like to is just how wonderful the protagonist is. What's her name?
Honor Swinton Byrne.
Honor Swinton, but she's fantastic. I mean, initially when I saw her, she's got this really androgynous quality, at the beginning, right? And so I kind of thought, oh, well, this might, be a film about a lesbian relationship or something. But it's very clear, you very early see that it's not quite like that. So on the one hand, she's got a bit of an androgynous look from some angles, and she's very tall, right? Which also then does evoke something aristocratic or patrician, kind of about her. And, from some angles, and particularly in the way that she talks, she's got a very soft, malleable, kind of very tender quality, and the combination of those elements I thought was just fantastic, and she's very expressive. So I thought she was great.
she's often dressed in jeans and trousers.
Yes.
As well, which I think
in 1980s jeans.
Yeah, which accentuates that kind of androgynous quality that she has, and also the shortness of her hair. It's kind of down to her below her ears sort of hair. And then there's a few moments when, particularly the scene where Anthony has been to Paris, comes back with lingerie for her to wear, and it's and she goes and puts it on, and she's confident in it, but there's a different look for her. I think there's one or 2 points. I think when they go and see the painting at the Wallace collection, she's in something more kind of formal and feminine.
Well, one of the things about the film is, she's upper class, he's upper class. They enjoy upper class trappings. They go out for dinner in really fancy restaurants where she's got to pick up the bill, right? So there is something there about a kind of an appreciation of elegance and luxury, right? Yeah, and that a kind of a wit and all of those things that are associated with a particular kind of I wouldn't say class, but it is class as well, right? Which I think also is a kind of a 1980s idea of elegant living, but as seen through things like Noel Coward or whatever, right? Like there is a kind of a posturing, in the way he is, for example, and then she's very at ease with it, right? She's got her brooches,
and it's a kind of posturing at a kind of conventionality, I think. Like there's or she, depending on who she's with, she kind of adjusts herself and her dress and her look to fit into the conventions of either the film school people, the upper class people.
She's in jeans with the film school people, and the thing is that he sees her in a particular way, right? So he has a dress made for her, and it's kind of like a 1950s style couture dress, right? And then there's the scenes where they go to Venice, and my God, that is like something out of Senso, right? She's not only wearing like this huge 18th century dress, but it's got a huge train, right, as she's going up the stairs and so on, right? So there is a kind of, the film, it might be nostalgic, but there's a fascination with that upper class milieu and look and lifestyle, and which he's very at ease with, and which I think he is seen to, on the one hand, create the context for and shape, and through that I think he gives her confidence in a weird way. It's an idea of her that's based on the past, right? So he goes to Paris, and what does he bring her back? It's like those old-fashioned, what do you call it,
stockings and
the thing to hold up the stockings,
garter
belt, so, and then he has a dress made for her. It's not a 1980s dress. It's like it's an 18th. Well,
it's a phantom thread dress.
It's a phantom thread. It's like a Dior dress aping the 18th century, right? So so there is. That is the world that, or he creates for her. Yeah, it's like, on the other hand, he's a heroin addict, and he's going through all the back streets of London, trying to get a fix. Yeah, but those two things are coexisting. Yeah, and I think, and they're coexisting, in a way for her. Yeah, it's kind of, it's how he sees her, right, and then what she takes from that vision of her that he sees. I think it's really interesting.
I said to you in the lift on the way up that I didn't like the fact that the film ends with his overdose and death.
Yes.
To me, that seems like an easy ending.
Well, I think I don't understand you, because, It's inevitable, really. Like, considering the depth of his addiction, and the little help available.
He winds up in a rehab. He's, he backslides. That's what it is, isn't it? Because he's clean for a little while.
I think almost all addicts say, it's just a question of time. I mean, this could be the time that the heroin is the wrong dose, and so
you have to think about recovery in terms of a kind of constant vigilance.
But you also have to think of death as an everyday possibility. I mean, has it been cut? Has it not been cut? What kind of a dose are you taking? I mean, it's not as if you're walking around with a little scale, are you? So, I mean, he overdosed in the bathroom. That's a kind of almost a cliche because it happens so often. So, to me, the film would have cheated in a way had that not been the case. And also, so there's a double thing. He's a heroin addict, and the film is called The Souvenir, right? Like, so it's almost like the death is implicit, in the title, really. So, I suppose you could have made it the end of the affair, so the souvenir would have been of an affair that was over, rather than, the affair being over because the guy died. But to me, I didn't feel it was a cheat at all.
Yeah, a cheat is overdoing it, but I just felt like they made... I suppose the positive way of saying it is inevitable, as you do, and the negative way of saying it is predictable.
But did you find it predictable?
Yeah. I saw it coming.
Oh, well...
I felt it was in the post. I just want to have... go back to the painting, because there's something about the painting where there's a letter at the floor which is from her lover. And I want to know if, is it like an old letter and she's carving his initials as a memory? Is it a recent letter and she hopes to see him?
To be honest, I don't know. I haven't studied the painting. I've barely looked at it, so I wouldn't be able to tell you about the painting. No. We're here to discuss the film.
I know, but the importance of the painting is right there in the title, and in the film. I was just curious. I want to see if there's anything if anything is actually known, or if it's something that's more an interpretative, avenue. There's something here. The young girl has just received a letter from her lover, which we see lying on the ground. So delighted with its content and so besotted by her lover, she is carving his initials into the bark of the tree. By her side, sitting on a pedestal which bears the artist's name, is her pet spaniel, a symbol of fidelity. So, well, this is a post by some guy about the artist, and his interpretation certainly is that it's a current love. That how will it progress? But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
No.
It can be No, it's food for thought.
Anyway,
I like when people in films go and look at paintings. I like it, I like it in Bruges and they're talking about hell and purgatory in Tottenham, and I like it in Ferris Bueller when this just goes closer and closer and closer until it's abstracted.
I like it in Almodovar. He always does it.
Yeah.
He always kind of lends significance, to paintings or other art objects, and sometimes they are commenting on the film, very directly, and sometimes they are, but more mysteriously. He doesn't necessarily expect the people to know the work, but the work is nevertheless adding a kind of a layer of context or meaning, or color.
I think fine art in real life can be. I think it sometimes seems like, especially older works, are from such a sort of different era that they can seem hard to get a grip on if you're in a gallery looking at them, and you sometimes just don't really know what you're meant to be making of them. And I like hearing people talk about them, even in a film context when it's for another purpose maybe, because you start to get this idea of how to read a painting, how to read a sculpture through through these characters' eyes. I like that.
It's so interesting because both the painting is held at the Wallace Collection, and what the Wallace Collection also is a repository of great 18th century art, really. So I mean the house is a collection that was kind of a gift to the nation, and because of the time it was given, and because the owner this was an area of collecting, the furniture, the way the rooms are, everything is like an epitome of like great 18th century living, right? Like, it's got the best collection of or there are more items personally owned by Marie Antoinette in one room in the Wallace collection than anywhere else in the world, they tell you, right?
Oh, right.
So it's that kind of thing. It's got it's got a full set of the encyclopédie, the kind of, the Voltaire and Diderot and Montesquieu and all those great Enlightenment writers contributed to it, right? So it's so interesting that this idea of luxury, elegant, ease, and so on, is also something that kind of that the Wallace collection evokes, and that the main male protagonist has a connection to.
And there's the characters have such an ease moving through it in the film that kind of struck me of just fitting in there so comfortably.
Yes.
Like if I ever go into a big sort of old stately house like that, stately home, I feel like I've got to take my shoes off and apologise for being there.
But on the other hand, then you're not shaking with withdrawal systems over heroin addiction either. So the interesting.
I'm doing well in some places.
All right, let's wrap it up. I think we're meandering now.
Yeah, but it's nice to meander. It's a meandery sort of film, I think.
Oh.
I think it has a tone of that. It has a tone of they meander through the Wallace collection. They meander here, there, and thither. They meander into Harrods and have tea, and there's some. It has that feeling. I think it encourages that.
It's a very gentle and loving and quite elegant kind of look at what could have been a really horrible subject, i.e., a nice girl having an affair, with a junkie, right? So to have, expressed that tone with that subject matter is quite something. I also came across this thing today that I want to read out because it's about the Portuguese concept of saudade.
What's that?
It's often translated as nostalgia.
Okay.
But it's not really nostalgia. It's about
the love that remains is an idea given here.
Okay.
Missingness.
Yes. So wait a second. Let me find the right quote.
It's spelled, for the purposes of anyone listening, Saudade.
Okay, so here it is, right? So saudade is a lot more complex than the usual translations convey. I think that in English it's often translated as nostalgia, but saudade is the presence of the past in the present, and it's also the desire for the future in the present. It's the reality of the present, which contains both the past and the future, which is something that we've forgotten in the modern world. The present doesn't exist, actually. There's neither past nor future. People live in a false present. Is
that quote from anyone in particular, or is that just...
Yeah, so this is by the filmmaker of How Fernando Pessoa Saves Portugal. It's something, Eugene Green, right? And then he says, saudade is a sort of joyous melancholia. I don't know if you're familiar with the fado tradition. There's a great singer who sings... I don't know. Okay, saudade is a sort of joyous melancholia. It's not depressive sadness. It's a sort of sadness that is part of the fullness of living. I think you get a little bit of that in the film. Yeah. It's kind of, it's melancholic, but it's loving. Yeah. It's kind of, it's about something loved that is still present, and that gives meaning, right? Yeah, it's kind of, Anyway, kind of
It's a very Latin feeling.
for a very English film.
We just repress that shit down.
Anyway, so let's wrap it up. I really loved it, and I could imagine myself seeing it again. It's not a film that you come out thinking, "Oh, wasn't that amazing? Wasn't that fantastic?" You know, because it's kind of like a gentle film that kind of builds on you. You know, but I think it's the work of a really great filmmaker who knows how to use kind of cinema expressively, and who makes kind of film poetry while doing it, really, and which kind of leaves you with both a feeling, and ideas to work through as you leave the cinema, really.
I quite liked it.
Okay.
Everything in moderation, Jose Arroyo.
Okay.
All things in moderation. I quite liked it. I got a little bored at 1 or 2 points, and I think it's... I don't know, I feel to some degree like I wish it maybe approached things that it didn't, or... I don't know. I wouldn't wish it to be a different film than it is, but I just, I quite liked it. It is what it is, and...
I love it.
Yeah, well, You're a slut for all this sort of stuff.
All right. Well, I highly encourage you to see it if you get a chance. So thank you very much for listening. We are eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.